This open meeting of the Senior Center Committee is being conducted in person and via Zoom. Speakers on the agenda may be participating remotely, and the chair may allow the public to provide comments after the agenda is completed. If a member of the public wishes to speak, please stand in the meeting room or on your computer, and when called upon, please state your name for the meeting minutes. The Senior Center Committee would welcome public comments, and if there is further action that is required by the committee, the clerk will add the matter as appropriate to the forthcoming agenda. Depending upon the comment, the committee may, if they are able, within the confines of the open meeting law, respond with information as opposed to needing to deliberate on the matter. Please note that while an option for remote attendance and/or participation is being provided as a courtesy to the public, the meeting will not be suspended or terminated if technological problems interrupt the virtual broadcast to the individual attendees, unless otherwise required by law. Accordingly, please be aware that other folks may be able to see you. So please take care not to screen share your computer. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. The end. So we've got that out of the way. Tonight's agenda doesn't have an awful lot of parts to it, but first one, we follow the order. First item that's of any importance here at the moment is acceptance of prior meeting minutes. Have all the members received the prior meeting minutes? We should have received them twice. Were there any questions, exceptions, things that anybody could not live with? The minutes, generally speaking, have been pretty good, Nick.
I had sent you a note, Jerry.
You did.
On the second page, the very last sentence, we should point out the tax burden for a debt override of 200 to 300 would only be about $3, the cost of a cup of coffee. I suggested that be amended or in part removed. Deb correctly said 35, I said 3, and it turns out Deb was right. And Josh after the meeting, so it isn't appropriate to the minutes, sent out a piece of information about what it would be. And I would basically, I sent you the language, basically it would be about $35, and I would delete the cost of a cup of coffee at the end. It's kind of an editorial comment that I don't think has a great deal of value. So I would move, we amend the minutes to read, we should point out that the tax burden for our debt override would only, et cetera, only be about $35, period.
I would second that. Anybody have a? Go ahead, Mark.
I was actually at the last meeting,
Yes.
has me listed as absent.
Oh, really? Whoops.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was quiet, but I was there.
Well,
I saw your face.
that's the reason. I should have had.
Yeah.
So add that. So if we add that, and we also add the edit that Jack just went over regarding the financial impact for the taxpayer being more than a cup of coffee.
It also changes the 3 to 35.
Right. Change that to 35.
Yep.
Is that okay by everybody? Any other comments on that?
That makes sense.
Could I have a motion to accept the meeting minutes from the July, I don't have it in front of me, July 11th, is it?
July 11th,
July 11th,
as amended,
as amended.
so moved.
Second,
All right, via roll call, all in favor, Mary?
Would you raise your hand?
I didn't see, sorry. Fall right here. Mark,
Yes,
Jack,
Yes.
Mary Ann,
yes.
Deb,
Yes.
I'm a yes. Josh.
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Stephanie,
Yes.
And that's it for voting members, unanimous, perfect, thank you. Next issue is item 3 on the agenda, working group reports. As I think everybody knows, all the working groups aren't always busy all the time, generating new materials for presentation. But we do have some facts to update people on tonight. The first one, the RFI, request for information, looking for lease space. It was publicized, I think, July 9th. Again, I don't have the date in front of me, but it went out a couple weeks ago. We received a response pretty quickly from Maynard Crossing. And this afternoon, we also received a response, and I have to say it's an unofficial response from Mill and Main. And I state that it's unofficial because Greg brought to my attention this afternoon that since they sent it via email to me and did not respond officially to the town website, the RFI, which they are doing, but they haven't. They sent it to me so that we would have it to discuss at tonight's meeting. So it's unofficial, but it is the proposal. So we're gonna talk a little bit about that second one. Last meeting, we talked a bit about the proposal that we received from Maynard Crossing. Tonight, we'll spend a few minutes and talk about the numbers and the impact and the building at Mill and Main. I think Jack may be able to address the numbers a little bit on the Mill and Main proposal that came in today. Maybe.
There's a piece of the Maynard Crossing one that I suggest we, excuse me. There is, and I think everybody, excuse me, has seen it, the draft of an override article for fall town meeting and so forth, and it had just, XX00. And at the time we got the Maynard Crossing one, there was the $35 per square, $32.25 plus 7, plus the $35 allowance for fit up. What we've been trying to do, and I think it's since the last meeting, is try to actually come up with some set of numbers that would represent what the build out cost would be. And it's only a data point, but I tried to contact the JBJ Construction, who is the construction arm of the people who run Maynard Crossing. I did it in 2 ways. One, I got the number and I called the guy twice. His voicemail box was full, so that never got anywhere. But on their website, there is a place to go in and ask for a quote. So I went in and filled that out. I've heard nothing from them. But separately, both Jerry and I went off looking in terms of what does build out typically cost in a raw space. And what we have is raw space. Turns out that I talked to an architect that I know that had actually worked on a project there, and he broke things down. And Jerry sort of independently went off and did an online kind of thing. And what I found fascinating was the build out cost over and above the $35 allowance probably looks like $70 to $75 per square foot.
Big money.
So if we, and I use a model of 6,000 square foot, so we're looking at potentially build out cost of $420,000 over and above their allowance, which was 216 or whatever the thing was. At some point, we need to factor that into what we're doing, because while it's that's a one-time cost, and what we've been focusing on is an override article that becomes a permanent thing, which covers the leasing costs. So it's just a data point that build out costs are going to be a significant part of the conversation, how they get funded, so forth and so And that is relevant to the second part of it, which is the Mill and Main kind of stuff. Um, Background, because I always give you more detail than you
Oh,
want.
no, go for it, yeah, doing a good job.
The mill now has a new title holder.
Oh,
Yes,
It is now. The lead partner, for lack of a better thing, is Granite Point Management Trust, a New York-based publicly traded real estate investment trust. And at the last meeting, Jerry commented that when we, the senior center committee through Jerry, had made the request to Mill and Main, there was some, well, we're working on things and so forth and so on. So that's apparently what was going on in the background. So, and it turns out the Granite Point people have actually been involved in financing the mill for about 6 years with some of the other people, but anyway. They're in place, the town knows about it, pretty much, the word's beginning to get out. But really nothing much is going to change at any particular rate, because there's a whole bunch of issues and gotta figure out so forth and so on. But as part of the conversations, the Lincoln property people, and let me back up here, because I have found confusion as I talk to people in terms of, oh, wait a minute, who really owns the mill? The financial people own the mill, but there are some people who think Lincoln Properties is the owner. As you go to the website, well, it's Lincoln Properties, yada, yada, yada. Lincoln Properties has two roles. One, they are the on-site manager, so they manage the facility. Second part is they are also the leasing agent or the marketing agent for the property. But they are not the owners. The actual owner actually shows up on the thing you got today from Mill and Main, which is GPMM LLC is the now the actual owner. Somewhere in my pile of papers, there is a copy of the offer that has been received. So Mill and Main is proposing to offer for lease the Paymaster building, which is also building 9. And if you're not familiar with it, as you're standing in front of the post office, look diagonally across to the 2 granite pillars which go into the parking lot. That's building 9. There are orange awnings which say Maynard Medical Center or something like that. Dr. Finucci has her office in there and has had it in there for a very long time. But so there's some points of things we need to have some confusion cleared up, because the offer from Mill and Main says the whole building is yours.
Yeah.
So there's,
Wants to know that she was moving out one of her leases. Because she's actually part of Emerson practice.
Yep.
So she's going to be moving into one of their facilities.
okay, that may be the answer that we're looking for. And a sideways data point, Emerson is putting positions upstairs in the old Walgreens building, so she may be moving there, but anyway. So the building 9, 7,400 square feet, the entire facility is apparently going to be available. It also represents an opportunity, my words, for the town, because for the last 10 plus years, the Maynard Historical Society has occupied the entire second floor pro bono. And there's no commitment to them or anything else, but the offer begins at $16.50 a square foot, plus $1.75 per month or per square foot for electricity. Goes up by 50 cents a year. It's a 5-year, 5-month offer with a couple of 1-year extensions. That's a fairly aggressive price. They're very careful to say that if it goes into the option years, it's fair market, whatever that might be. And the first 5 months is free. You still pay for electricity. And there may be some other little nuances in there that we discovered with some of the previous offers that, you know, we need to be really careful that we're covering those kinds of costs. It does give us some of the information we need in terms of being able to put an override article together, put in the least costs. If you want, I went back to the spreadsheet that Greg Johnson did from the July 2021 offer. I use that as a basis. I've done a 5-year thing reflecting that with lots of notes about, you know, wait a minute, check on this, check on that, so forth and so on. We are back in the same sense for the Paymaster building, building 9, as we are with the Main and Crossing one. The building is not ADA compliant. It does have a handicap ramp coming up to the doctor's office, so you could get in there. The parking garage with its elevators is available, so it has parking. It does have a handicap access, but only to the first floor. There is no elevator. There's no air conditioning on the second floor. There's no ceiling on the second floor. And the right-hand side, which is where I think the old original vault, almost a beehive kind of vault, is still there. And the right-hand side of that building has not been used in as many decades as I can remember. So I have no idea what condition it is. My purpose in going through that is, if it's an acceptable solution for an interim senior center, what are the fit-up costs, renovation costs, whatever you want to call it? How do we come up with that number? And it still becomes a one-time thing that sort of really doesn't fit the purpose of what we're trying to do with override. So there's, you know, some action items there. I think that's the end of my bucket dump. If anybody wants a copy of the sheet, sorry for the online folks, but
And one thing that was jumped out at me on that is that they will cover the HVAC as part of the lease.
okay, right?
They'll cover the cost of the HVAC as part of the lease in Mill and Main.
Given there is none on the second floor, that's gonna be interesting.
Well, I think exactly what it's,
So it'd be for the first floor anyway, then. So long term, we'd have to figure out what we would do with the first, with the second floor.
right.
Thank you.
Jerry,
Yeah,
there's no heat upstairs either. And there's minimal lighting and there's no ceiling in that raw half of the building. It's just framed. It's in very rough shape.
all right. So we've got to get over to take a look at it, and to Jack's point, we need to figure out what the fit-up costs are gonna be. Now, so this building has more in it than what we saw at Main and Crossing. Main and Crossing is an absolute bare bones, new construction, no floors, no walls, no ceiling, no plumbing, nothing, zero. This has something. How much of the something that's gonna be usable to us going forward, I don't know yet. We need to figure that out. My guesstimate, and anybody who's online or in here can certainly add to it. I guess I would guesstimate that the fit-up cost for the Mill and Main building would be lower than what Main and Crossing would be. But I don't know that, because Main and Crossing is about 6,000. The Mill and Main is 7,400 square feet, so
Right.
maybe less, but it's bigger. And if we're gonna fit up the entire second floor, I don't know. I don't know.
Does it, Main and Crossing have the heat already in there? No,
There's
no,
nothing.
nothing.
So you have to
Okay.
figure out your own.
It's an empty box.
Got it.
empty box.
It's
You
a
have walls.
blank, no plumbing,
I
no-
buy it a lot and see that there isn't anything in it. That's
Right.
No, like, if you get a space that someone has already done, then you inherit the money they have put into it.
Okay.
If you're walking into brand new space, it's,
Mhm.
Yeah, so that's a tough one there. Bill and Maine should be less.
I mean, they at least have bathrooms, they have that bathrooms in their doctor's office, right?
yeah, for the benefit for the folks that are online. The proposal does have a layout of both the first and second floors. The second floor, and even part of the first floor has some fairly large room kinds of areas. I do know there's a men's room and a ladies' room on the second floor. There would certainly be a bathroom in the doctor's area. I don't know whether there are any others over on the right-hand side of the building, as you said, but there are offices, partitions, windows, external windows. As Peg pointed out, the second floor, neither heat nor air conditioning, no ceiling, it's just kind of raw, but basically it's a structurally sound thing that's in halfway reasonable shape.
But it has a floor. The first floor certainly has plumbing. Second floor may not have
No,
plumbing,
the second floor, there's a men's and women's
Oh,
room
there is
on the second floor.
so,
And there is from the second floor, an external staircase under the fire escape,
oh, for fire safety, you could get out, okay,
yep, off the second floor.
okay. Interesting. Well, I mean, it's certainly, we needed at least 2 data points, it'd be nice to have 3.
Right.
But there aren't that many places around town, it's a small town, there aren't that many places that it's not 5, 6, 7,000 square feet. You know,
So we haven't heard from anyone.
No.
Okay.
officially or unofficially, I have not unofficially heard, nor has Greg heard officially. Greg only has one,
Correct.
which is Maynard Crossing, he's
The other
waiting,
come in.
waiting the second one to come in, probably by tomorrow.
And my recollection is the official due date when the RFI was posted was August 2nd.
Yeah, like that, yeah. Yeah, so they'll get, yeah, so I'm sort of not expecting others, nobody sent me a note saying, hey, we're working on it, I've heard none of that,
So we haven't heard anything from Mr. Anderson.
we have not.
Okay.
We have not. And I chased Mary Brandley again with another text,
Okay.
because she was, I don't know him, and she was gonna bug him,
Mhm.
but
Okay.
I would have assumed that he would have, even through the rumor bill, been somewhat aware. He knows the senior center committee exists,
Right.
and he knows, because Mary is talking about it,
Mhm.
he knows we're looking for space. If there was any interest, I think he would have stepped up.
Okay.
So I'm guessing we may have 2 choices in that. Yeah, and they're not bad, just
Mhm.
one.
Work.
Yeah, well, they both need work. One will be extremely expensive. But the hard thing to Jack's point on the fit up costs of $400 and some odd $1,000. We're going in and fitting up a bare bones facility that we're not gonna live in for the next 100 years. We'll live in there for, some number of years.
Mhm.
You almost want to think, you put that money towards something that's gonna be ours? I don't know. It's just a thought that goes through my mind.
Right.
One of the, just point, Jerry, mostly for the benefit of the folks that are on Zoom. Just some data points. The first 5 months at Mill and Main are free, but then the rent plus electric, and I'll just read the numbers, 135 something, 138.7, 142.45, 146, and then 149.850 would be the annual 12-month period rental things. And I really want to point out in that I used the thing that Greg did, and there are some estimates that we need to make sure are included: insurance, Comcast, maybe Drive Tech, the support thing, there's supplies, custodian, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
So there's a bunch of detail things that need to be included in that. Or added.
Right, and they need to be included in either location or any location,
Mhm.
correct?
Correct.
Oh,
Yeah, and they did call out the taxes and operating expenses separately, so that could be added on top too.
oh, I didn't even see, oh, thank you. I don't know who had their hand up first. let me-
Josh had his hand up first, Linda was second, and then I'm third.
Okay, Josh, go for it.
All right, I'll be quick. So I haven't seen Mill and Main, so I don't know the extent of the work that would be necessary. I have seen Maynard Crossing. It is a complete blank slate. The one thing I would caution, Jack, I don't know. I totally trust you on finding that data about the $75 a square foot. But what I don't know is whether or not, because it would be town funds going into it, whether or not it would be subject to prevailing wage laws and public construction laws. If that's the case, it would be significantly more expensive. And the reason why I raise that is that if it becomes clear that Maynard Crossing requires more investment than Mill and Main, then that's just going to be exacerbated if public bid and prevailing wage laws are applied,
Mhm.
further
Okay.
tipping the scales towards Mill and Main.
Josh, let me ask you a question. If the town hired, for example, JBJ Construction is the construction arm of the Maynard Crossing people. If the town hired them, does that invoke the prevailing wage laws or not?
It's a gray area, Jack. There's been a few rulings over the last 5 or 6 years, specifically around state universities that have done things like this. And the state has been tightening up the laws because state agencies and communities have been trying to kind of circumvent them. The thing that makes me think that it may not be applicable in this case is that we would not have a tangible asset at the end. So those investments are sunk costs on our end. We're not walking away with anything. So I think a case could be made that it would not be subject to prevailing wage and public bid. But I just wanted to raise it as a question because I genuinely don't know.
And who was the next one? Was it Linda
Linda.
or Amy?
Linda.
Linda? Okay, Linda, go
Yeah,
for it.
something that you said, Jack, is that sort of set off alarm bells was Mill and Main is not ADA compliant and no elevator. And so if we get 7,400 feet, my questions would be, can we get less? If the first floor is ADA compliant, we can't, because an elevator would be, that's a big expense, right? I don't know how much, hundreds of thousands. But can you get less space, or how ADA non-compliant is it? Is the first floor? Can you, I don't know what the area, but we have to, I mean, an elevator is a budget buster. Yeah,
Yeah, there's a bunch of unknowns, and one of the potential conversations we could have is we don't want a whole 7,400. So, that kind of thing. I'm gonna go off into a detail that maybe Amy knows. Yes, putting in a full-scale elevator would be a very large expense, but there's also the things that you can get in the home, which is basically a vertical lift that I've seen advertised, which would fit in that building very nicely, but I'm not sure that would be ADA compliant and, meet whatever requirements that puts up.
Yeah, it might not, because it's public versus, it's a public space versus, what you put in your home. And would it meet ADA compliance?
Well, I don't know, but it's fairly straightforward.
Yeah.
Cut 2 holes, you put the shafts in, and it's fairly inexpensive to do it.
You could get that done next weekend.
Would you help me?
I will. I will.
Can answer that if you'd like.
Please.
Okay, so the vertical lifts are not, there was a time not too long ago where they were compliant, but now you need a variance from MAAB, the Massachusetts Architectural Access Board, to install those vertical lifts. And cost avoidance is the #1 reason that they reject those variances. So it's not likely that they would, they'd sign on to that. Same thing with chair lifts. They're really trying to get away from those. What I would say though, is that, a variance for, how we use that second floor may very well be granted. So, if you were to go to MAB and say, you know, this is a temporary solution. The second floor is going to be used for admin offices, storage, back of house, custodial spaces, you know, basically everything where there's not public access, that would be a slam dunk. You might even be able to convince them that you're going to use the second floor for more active programming where people who maybe are a little more mobile would be able to use that space. They might grant a variance for a temporary condition. So just some other things to think about.
Interesting. Thank you, Josh. That was a good update. Amy,
I've probably lost track in all the discussions with the visitation groups. What space specifically is being looked at up at Maynard Crossing? What is it next to? Is it next, what other business is it next to, the potential space?
we have the-
Amy, are you familiar with the buildings up there?
Yeah, more or less, yeah, just if you give me is it next to Middlesex Savings, is it next to Gymboree, is it next to Kung Fu?
No, if you go in and on the middle, on the right-hand side where Bright Path is,
Uh-huh,
it's the back corner diagonally opposite Bright Path.
Hmm.
It's buildings and their nomenclature, it's 1320 and 1322.
right, great, thank you, Jack.
It's a nice location. It's a great space. It's just. It's
Expensive.
a skeleton. It's very difficult. Any other comments on that, on regarding the space? I think we sort of talked the space issue a bit. Anybody in this room have any more comments on the space?
Not until I see it.
Well, that's it. I mean,
Yeah.
there's more unknowns than there are knowns. We just know physically the building is there. Beyond that, I think Jack is our historian.
Well, the other thing that, it's not our responsibility, but the issue of the Historical Society, which is a private, separate organization. It's the Maynard Historical Society, but it's independent of the town.
Right.
And for a long, long time, they occupied a room downstairs here until it flooded. At which point they got off into the mill, and I don't know whether there's an opportunity, they're not paying anything for it, but could they share a part of it and senior center and there needs to be some conversation with the Historical Society.
Absolutely. So I guess the first question, does the Historical Society have any money?
Last I knew, about $27,000.
Oh, that'll help us. No, I'm just wondering if there, just a fee, a nominal fee even, just to help offset something. If they were to stay there and take a portion of the second floor. As we've seen in other centers, as we've gone around, Veterans Affairs have been in certain ones.
Actually, Historical Society was in with Millis.
And Millis was Historical Society,
They
that's
have
right.
all of the Historical Society.
All the records, yes. So you're right, Jack. So having that building be the senior center, yes, that's the dominant occupant, but there could be one or two or three other, smaller occupants that may or may not offer any revenue. Don't know. But you're right, but it's a nice location. It's a nice central location. It's walking, it's right downtown. It would be nice in many ways.
Well, I mean, again,
Again,
that they literally mention in their offer. It's level, there's parking, there's access to the garage with its elevator, so you could park all those things, so. It avoids some of the concerns
it's-
with some of the other kinds of places.
Yep.
Anyway,
agreed. Next item on the agenda is senior center visits update. I don't want to necessarily pigeonhole anybody into doing anything, but. Mary Ann,
We have Mary Ann's name down here, don't we?
Mary Ann, would you be able to just give just a brief comment to where we are, where we went this week?
Well, this week, a group from the group, visited the Mayor Senior Center and documented with photographs like we've done at all the other senior centers, and we're in the process of pulling it all together so we can have a visual, record of each center we visited and compare with what we currently have, then we'll need to go.
Perfect. And that means, so that pictorial view, like, a picture's worth 1,000 words, is, I think, gonna be extremely helpful for people who haven't been to, whether they're on this committee or just, they're residents. And they wanna see, well, what does Millis look like? What does Maynard look like? What does Littleton look like?
Mhm.
And again, it's not the one's better than the other, one's different than the other. And there's good, and there was things in some of those sites that we liked, there was things that don't really apply to us that much,
Right.
but it was a learning process, and we needed to do that. So, thank you, that was good, quick update. So we will get all that, hopefully in the next few weeks on the senior center website, so that people can actually look at it, because they can't get there now. None of that is available, so hopefully we can get that done. The next item is the senior center financing update. Again, I'm gonna lean back on Jack for a minute. Jack has been the person who has done all the drafts of the verbiage, the process for getting ready to go to town meeting, to apply for not capital, but operating money. And right now, I don't know that there's a lot we can update on the financial aspect, because we now have a new player from what we had before. But we've got to sort of figure out in the next week or so, what monies do we need to apply for? Correct, am I right?
Yeah. You're right.
Yeah, thank you. Well, that was quick.
Oh,
It's very unusual, Jack.
left word.
Well, again, data points that aren't specific to the money, I've already made the point of, with the 2 data points, we can at least look at an override article that addresses the leasing costs.
Yeah.
And let me just spend a second there, because I think everybody knows by now, but if there is an override article and it passes, then let's just say it's 200,000 for purposes of our conversation. Once that passes, it automatically raises the town's levy limit, which means the $200,000 is there every succeeding year. Now, I have sent, and those of you who looked at the draft warrant article that I did circulate at the last meeting, there were a couple of language things in there that I was trying to do that said, for purposes of fund, I don't remember exactly what they are. One was to be expended under the direction of the Council on Aging or an alternate to fund the COA budget line in the town budget. And what I did was send that to Greg. And he understands the problem. That basically, is there a way in a warrant article to write the language that binds future spending or spending in the out years to the COA? Because otherwise it goes into the general budget and we're sort of dependent on lobbying and the fact that there's a contract in place and so forth and so on. Greg's response was he would check with town council. I have not yet had a response, but he's at least looking at that in the sense of, is there a way to write the warrant article that does that? The answer may be no, so it's just a point of information. The other point that we've already discussed here tonight is the distinction that we need to make between an override article to fund leases and the build out, fit out kinds of costs, which are gonna be a big chunk of money, and we need to have conversations with FinCom or whomever in terms of what's the best way to perhaps go at that. Third data point is, I think everybody is aware that on July 30th, there is the next meeting of what's now become the Quad Board, FinCom, Capcom, School Committee, and Select Board. The Senior Center Committee representative has been invited so that we will be at the table, but we're not officially one of the boards that, you know, gets to be part of the presentation or discussion, but I suspect, given the conversations at select board meetings and so forth, there clearly will be a discussion of where does the senior center, the interim senior center, funding and monies stand in terms of, well, where are we, which is the data points we need, and where are we in the priority of any other set of expenditures, whatever those might be, and there's a fairly long list. And the other thing, which again, everybody knows, but I'll reiterate, is there is a pretty much hard deadline for August 6th. The warrant articles could be fiddled a bit in terms of timing, but the override, if that's what we go forward with, becomes a ballot question for the November 5th ballot. So the August 6th date is a hard stop in terms of being able to get something on the ballot. Which gets us into the conversation, because I talked to one of the select board members, and he understands the things we're going through here. And I sort of floated, well, how about letting us go forward and we can withdraw the article if, you know, we weren't ready by town meeting. That's a workable thing, except you can't very well withdraw something from the ballot. So we really do need to do a bunch of work as best we can between now and August 6th in order to come to some final understanding of whether we're going to be have a warrant article in the fall town meeting. End of my comments.
Well, I've got a question on what you just talked about too. We know the lease is an operational expense. It's an annual issue with a, you know, a small number increase. What about the fit out? The fit out, is that, and Linda, you might have an answer on this one. Is it operational or is it capital?
To me, it's capital, a capital expense. And I'm wondering, as we went to different senior centers, to the extent that we might find funding for fit up some other place, you know, a lot of the senior centers talked about grants and donations for furniture and other fit up costs. It's a very tight timeline. Or are there any reserves that we could draw on? I mean, it sounds like Maynard Crossing might be, what do we talk about? That was 6,000 square feet times, I'm trying to think, what was it? $75 a square foot. Was that it?
Yes.
Times,
Yes.
times 5. So that's 350,000
Yes.
roughly. I'm not sure about Mill and Main, depending on elevator plus or minus, it could be around the same amount of money. Are there any capital, you know, reserves that we could draw from? Or do we have to go for a debt exclusion override? My understanding is debt, we don't normally do debt exclusions for, if it's 350, I mean, it's like 1 or 2 million sort of as a threshold. That maybe we could look at some of the reserve funding we have for the fit out, or find some other ones. We might ask that at the quad board to say, is there any way to fund the fit out except for a debt exclusion override? And I'm not sure about Mill and yeah, Mill and Main,
So
$75 a square foot is around, right, is around 350. Is Mill and Main gonna be more? Like 150? And, you know, I know FinCom, we have a pot of money. There's also there's a reserve fund. There's lots of reserve funds around town. Maybe we could draw from them. Or propose some other kind of fundraising. For the fit out. But
So I guess my dilemma on it is. These are all good discussions, but to Jack's point, we get August 6th. You know, how soon can we really know some of those answers? I don't know. I honestly, I don't have that answer. I guess we'll find out next week at the quad board meeting. Oh. I think Amy, did you have your hand up? I thought you did.
I'm not sure how to articulate what's in my head, which is common. So I'm just wondering, Linda, about expenditures such as, can even be considered a capital expense because it's not something we're going to own? You know, a capital expense for something that's leased. I know that something came up with a capital.
my understanding is, Amy, that the lease will be an operating expense that we want to go for an operation.
Yeah, but the fit out, I'm sorry, I said that wrong, is can fit outs on a property that we don't own, can that be considered even a capital expense? Because it's something that we don't even own.
Yeah, that's a great point, Amy, because part of it is, I know when we work with the capital planning committee, they
Yeah.
have sort of a certain threshold of 25,000 has expected life,
Yeah.
so many years. And so we would have to look at what
Yeah.
the components are, you know, for between furnishings and other supplies.
Yes,
that
I think
might
it's
be
about the
for
things
the
that we
range.
own, like the furniture
Yeah.
and things like that we would own. So that, you know, those
Yeah.
being capital, things that we own, but then a building that we don't own, that I don't know how that money's going to be able to be moved around.
Yeah,
There's nothing that would preclude the use of free cash aside from local policy. But where it would be a non-starter is bond council would never sign off on issuing a bond for property that we're not going to see the full value of. Like if something has a 10-year lifespan and we're only going to get 5 years out of it, that would be a problem. And in this case, it would be even more complicated because the fit out costs would be investing into a building that we don't own and are not going to own on the other end. So I can't see how bond council would sign off on that. But again, and this is a big but if there was will on the town side, and if the capital planning committee supported it, and if the finance committee supported it, and if it rose above the other millions of needs on the list, I don't think, and Linda, feel free to jump in, I don't think there's anything that legally would preclude the use of free cash for fit up.
yeah. And the timing might be great, Josh, because free cash, we would vote, I believe, at the Springtown meeting. And that's sort of about what we're looking at, right? That say that would be a one-time expenditure, or maybe drawing from some other reserves that the town has for the fit out. And looking at other possible pots of funds. You know, if we have 27,000 or some amount from the Historical Society or Friends of Maynard Seniors, you know, we might be able to call together something. And again, it's not certain to me yet if we went with Mill and Main. It looks like it's going to be somewheres close to 350, but with an elevator it could be a lot of money. So we need to kind of estimate what we think we're going to need for the fit out.
Yeah, and we need to be careful of the language in terms of build out, fit out,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
forth and so on. And I don't want to put you on a spot, Mary Ann, but fundraising by the designated charity, which is Friends of Maynard, is another opportunity. The other thing to keep in mind is we have an offer letter from actually both parties. But one of the things I was thinking about that says the $16.50 per rentable square foot, setting aside electricity for a moment, is actually a fairly aggressive price.
Mhm.
And it would be interesting to have the conversation and a $15 per square foot allowance. If you do some simple math and say, instead of $16.50, make it $19.50 or $20. You could then ask them to double the allowance. So now you're up to 225, 250,000. They would get the money, it's just that they get it over 5 years at the increased rate. And we could play with that kind of thing, which would, for us, put more of the money back into the leasing stream, which would be appropriate. But again, that's a conversation we need to have in terms of quote unquote negotiating. For all we know, we could go back to the Mill and Main people and say, hey, $10 a square foot. Or, you know, whatever kind of thing.
No.
So what we really need is find a really sharp negotiator.
I think we have one in this room already. You're doing a great job so far, Jack.
You know, I don't have any experience with that kind of stuff.
Okay. Well,
Anyway,
we'll figure it out, but I guess, so part of it, I guess, is trying to figure out, capital versus operational monies and, so from a lease standpoint, we can at least figure out what we need there. The rest, if we can figure out about how much is needed, let's say it's another $250,000 of, let's say, capital or improvements. What pot that comes out of, we don't need to know that today. We just need to have an estimate, in my mind, of about what do we think we need.
Right.
Am I right?
well, yes, but we also need to ask ourselves the question. Do we need to, assuming that the Mill and Main thing was workable, do we need to do the whole building at once?
No.
That building has been divided for so long. That if we did this part, I mean, the heat that they have comes off their central stuff, there's not a separate heater in there, so there's gonna be heat. But if we did this part of the building this year, and that part of the building next year, does that work? I don't know. So there's a level of complexity in these conversations that we need to, make our list. And for the senior center committee as a whole. It's a future, but if in fact we get past the first hurdle. And we come to a conclusion that yes, we will have a warrant article in the fall. Then we really need to begin focusing on fundraising, all the other kinds of things in that interim period, because that becomes part of a message to the town at the fall. It says, okay, hey, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a bunch of activities for us. Once we get past this.
Right.
Little
Get
nut.
through that first step,
Get
Yeah.
over that first hurdle,
Yes.
then there's a long.
then it's a long way to go.
Exactly. Oh, good, Josh, who, Amy, I don't know who had their hands up first. Amy did, okay.
I had a quick thought. Is it possible for the visitation, the working group that does the visitation, that's done all the other visits, other senior centers, including the Maynard Senior Center, is it possible at all for them just to be able to go into this space with their keen eyes to take a look and report back to us? Since we're doing all these pieces at once, I'm just wondering what that would be, because we're hypothesizing about what it looks like in there, and could that working group talk to Lincoln Property, get a little visit, a little walkthrough?
Well, it's a very interesting question, and the offer has already been made. I asked the Mill and Main today, and they get back to me right away. We can do 10 o'clock. I think it's Wednesday.
Wednesday the 31st.
Wednesday the 31st, 10 o'clock in the morning. What I'm trying to do, and you're 100% right, Amy, you've got to get a few people in. So there's been a working group on real estate, on whether we lease or whatever we do. There's a working group on senior center visitations. So I've already sent out a question to the senior center working group that's been handling space lease. I have not sent it to the working group that was handling the senior center tours yet. I will. But what I want to be cautious of, I don't want to show up next Wednesday morning with 12 or 13 people.
Yeah.
And I,
That's why I asked
And-
the doctor's office to vote, because that would be. I would think we can't show up with a huge group of people. Into an existing.
well,
business.
and the other thing too is, I'd rather not have to advertise it as a public meeting too. If
Right,
we get
yeah.
over the quorum, then not as bad.
Two
I
comments.
think that's great. I think just anyone getting in there, anyone on this committee, if it's just 2 or 3 people, that's fantastic to get in there. Great.
Yeah, we're trying to limit it, and you're 100% right, I'll let Jack speak, but we do want to get to see, because some of it were going on, you know, what Jack has seen, and maybe what a few others have seen over the years. We need to go in and take a fresh look. Go ahead, Jack.
Two comments. One, the doctor's office is isolated. If you go in the middle door, there's a door to get in from the inside, and then the handicap ramp goes directly into her office on the
Okay.
outside. So you could run a whole bunch of people in there, get the whole second floor and the whole right half of the building
Okay,
without disturbing the doctor's office in any way.
okay,
And personal thought, given we're up against some deadlines, I would come down in favor of send it to the whole committee, and if we need to post it as a public meeting, that would be my suggestion, but it's up to you.
yeah, I mean, I have no problem with that, I just, you know, it just adds another step, if I have to post it Monday morning. But we can do. We can do.
And because it's on a Wednesday, that's when the Historical Society, they're open from 9 to 11 every Wednesday, so the second floor is gonna be open anyway.
Oh, okay, good. Good, we can start negotiating with them, perfect. See how much money they have. All right, so we'll do that. I'll open to the committee and I'll post it because there's a high probability we're gonna have a course.
All right, Natasha,
One before
July
Natasha,
1st.
George had his hand up, his arm is getting sore.
No, it's quite all right. Actually, Peg, why don't you go ahead? Because I might pivot us a bit. So
Okay, I was just gonna mention that there have been complaints from the doctor's office staff about 3 Historic Society people walking back and forth upstairs. There's no insulation, no sound insulation. And so it's been a disturbance. That's not even accounting maybe a fitness class or a lot of activity with people running back and forth upstairs, so that could be an issue.
Offices.
as a courtesy through Mill and Main, we should probably tell them so that they can tell the doctor's office if there's gonna be a tour thing.
And my other quick concern is the amount of square footage in the lobby, both upstairs and down, that we'd be paying for, that's pretty much useless space. And it's considerable, I think.
Yeah, I don't know, all right. Point well taken. I'm gonna have,
Natasha,
Natasha, you got a point, go for it.
Hi, I just on the topic of posting, there is an exemption. I just wanted to, for open meeting law, if you're doing an inspection. So if, if there is more than a quorum that would be going to inspect a site, you may not have to post for that. I just wanted to mention that. So if that was a big concern, there are certain guardrails, I guess, if you're talking about negotiation, then that might not then, allow that. But if you're just doing an inspection and you have a quorum, the school committee has done that when we've interviewed superintendents, we've gone on site, and we don't have to post when we're doing that, even if we're a quorum. So I just wanted to raise that, so that wouldn't be a barrier if that was a major concern, even if it was something that was decided at the last minute. So you didn't have to post that. And just while I have a few minutes of airtime, I just wanted to express the support in any way. I know that we don't, our groups don't often intersect, but I just want to make sure that that the school has this, support in any way we can. And just to put that out there, if there's anything that we can do on our end to facilitate these discussions. I know they've come up. I've heard a little bit here and there, and tonight I joined just because I wanted to hear firsthand a bit from what I'm hearing elsewhere. And as a resident, I think it's very important that these are being discussed. And so I just wanted to, I know the school committee has often tried to find ways that we can support the seniors, and we're going to be, Mary and I are actually going to be coming out in September to do our own visits, just to make sure that we do keep these open lines of communication going on. So.
Excellent, thank you, Natasha. On 2 points,
Yeah.
one, on the open meeting law, and two, and Jack just kind of, whispered a little across the table that, so I'm a little bit involved, as is Josh, with the new school building.
Yeah.
And, every time we save a little here and save a little there, maybe a little of that money the school department might be willing to donate to the seniors, because the kids are gonna become seniors someday too, so we're just looking.
Yes, I've heard how there's different echelons of hierarchy, juniors, seniors. I've been seniors. I've been taking notes as well. My husband is actually a senior, and so I'm sure, I at home on my personal level, I have my own experiences with AARP and Medicare that we deal with in our so
have
I just
Senior here as well.
yes. So I honestly, I often think about how we can, open a space, even right now. Last night, it was thinking about how can we maybe bundle. I was thinking the bleacher and, the senior, but I know that one's capital and one's operational. So that posed a statutory issue, but anything that we can do, to try to push these conversations forward. I don't like the idea of people framing them as competing projects, in any sense. We're a town, we always have projects that are happening regardless, and there are just many needs our town has. So whatever kind of support that, we can lend, I, very much would, want to just open that opportunity to please reach out.
Excellent, thank you, Natasha, appreciate that. Josh.
Thank you. So two things, Jack. I'm really glad you raised the concept of not needing necessarily to do everything at once. I think when we get over to Mill and Main, it might be a good idea to take a look at that first floor and see, is this a phase 1, phase 2 approach? And Peg, to your point, I'll be interested in seeing that floor plan to see if there's a way to modify the layout so that lobby is not as inefficient. See if there's a way to maybe capture some of that space so that we're taking advantage of it. But my bigger point is that I think one of the challenges we're going to have, and Jerry, you were speaking to this, is that we need to define what we need financially pretty quickly, and we're not going to have the benefit of getting perfect information. And it's going to be, I believe, difficult for the Board of Selectmen and FinCom to bless this approach without some specificity with respect to what we need. And so that's a long way of saying what I think we may want to do, because I think it may provide more flexibility for us, is we may want to increase our ask slightly, because, and I'll tell you why. Not because I think that and I'm making it up, if we raise it $50,000 a year, that it's going to pay for that fit out, but we could theoretically, let's say we try to negotiate with Mill and Main to do the fit out themselves, and they roll it into the lease. If we ask for that additional money, it covers that. Let's say that we do that negotiation and Mill and Main says no, or Mill and Main says yes, but we're going to charge you 7% interest because that's our borrowing rate to make those investments. The town then, if we have that additional money, can choose to basically loan itself that money. And what I mean by that is that we all know that there's competing interests with respect to free cash. The town could theoretically say, we're going to invest $300,000 in Mill and Main on the fit out, But we're gonna take, because the money is all very fungible, we're gonna take that $50,000 a year in additional money that was asked for, and we're gonna dump that back into free cash to build it back up. Basically a way of loaning money to ourselves at a 0% interest. So my real point there is that I think if we increase our ask just slightly, I don't think it's gonna have a tremendous impact on whether or not the voters support it. And I think it will provide all of us, including the Board of Selectmen or the Select Board and the Finance Committee, some flexibility as we figure out how best to finance the fit out costs.
Okay.
Excellent point, Josh. Thank you. Yeah, I was thinking we want to up the ask a little bit anyway, but I hadn't defined in my own head why. I mean, I knew I wanted to, but I was thinking more because of unknown, and I just don't know.
This
And I
is
like,
a good reason.
Yeah.
Yes.
yeah, that's a good reason. Perfect. Any other comments on, Bill and Maine site visit, I'll get something out tomorrow to the full committee. I like the idea about not having to post a meeting. I don't have a problem with it, but. All right, no check, perfect, Ellen, thank you.
If we do, I'll do it.
All right, well, Ellen's gonna check on it too.
Okay.
Whether we do or don't need to do it,
Correct.
whatever,
Okay.
we can do it first thing Monday morning. Any new business?
I think the new business might be what our calendar looks like.
Yes. Yes. And I worked my calendar earlier today. But then I gotta find it.
You want to get back to the first and third
Correct,
Thursdays.
correct. So looking at the calendar, so first and third, it all depends on the interpretation of what one wants to call first and third. If we take a look at August, there's 5 weeks, effectively.
Mhm.
So is the first Thursday, August 1st? We're calling that the first Thursday.
Yeah.
Or is it August 8th? Okay, so August 1st. So that means we're having a meeting next week. If we go to that. So it would be the first, that will be a remote meeting.
Correct.
Then it would be the 15th, that would be a remote meeting.
Mhm.
Then we would go 1, 2,
29.
3 weeks, we go to September 5th, which would be hybrid like this one. Right, so we're August 1st, August 15th, both are remote. September 5th would be hybrid. That sound about right, to
Mhm.
everybody? That gets us back to what we originally said, I think, in April,
Correct.
and March, actually. We talked about those dates,
And then we go September 19th.
and then we'll be September 19th, yes. And then the one after that, if you want to continue on, it'll be October 3rd. So the 19th would be remote. October 3rd would be remote. And October 17th would be hybrid.
Okay.
Let's leave it at that for now. That gets us out
Yep.
6 meetings, and that's. If something may pop up in between that causes us to have to change it, but
Correct.
that avoids the holiday. Right, does that avoid everything? I think it does.
It looks like it does.
I don't think there's a conflict. Number 5th is okay. The October. Yeah, we're all right. So that will be, and we'll put that in the minutes. And we'll get that out to everybody, so everybody's aware of what the schedule is.
Mhm.
Any other new business? Excellent, thank you for bringing that up, because I had it on here and. been doing it.
That's why I'm over here.
Very good. Very good. We don't need a clerk. Oh, really? Any other new business in the room? No? Online, any new business? Any burning desires? No? Okay. Any public comments? Of course, I went out of order and we allowed Natasha to speak very nicely and very thankful for that. She was really a member of the public. We're okay? Good, no public comments. I guess at this moment then, if there is nothing else, I would entertain a motion.
I make a motion to adjourn the meeting at 8:11.
Second.
Well, that was quick. Okay, by a roll call. Mary.
Yeah.
Mark,
Yes.
Jack,
Yes.
Mary Ann,
Yes.
Deb,
Yes.
I'm a yes, George,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Stephanie. Those are all the voting members. We are officially adjourned, 8:11. Thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
meeting tonight, folks.